Let's talk about Apple. Again, I know, but this time is about my Apple pet peeves. The things that I really hate about Apple devices, and most recently, with some things I thought to be already addressed years ago. And they weren't. But even worse, I don't know what kind of professionals really use Apple devices, and it feels they're using them in a perfect world condition. Now, about this. For those that know me, really understand and share some of my frustrations. But overall, for those who don't, I have been a long time Intel and Microsoft, let's call it PC user and fan. My last Intel lineup was my perfect computer, as I built it for VR and video editing. But all of these supply issues with GPUs, yes, NVIDIA, I'm talking about you. The mass grab of GPUs from the crypto world and most recently the terrible disappointment of the Intel CPU performance per watt made me look at the other side of the market, the Apple world again. So I came late to the Mac world, I must admit. My first PC was an Intel 386DX without the mathematical coprocessor. Then my dad bought me the coprocessor and I could run things a lot faster, especially games and AutoCAD. I then moved along the 486, the Pentium, and so on up until the last reincarnations of the x86 64 bits. So my last two PCs were a Dell XPS and a custom-made PC that I built to run Oculus Rift. And that was expensive, and above all, the specs I had to go through to build it were as impressive as mad for the time. For you to run Oculus Rift, you had to have the works on my machine kind of specs, as literally you had to have the same machine as Oculus developers had to properly run. And all of this, after my days of running Linux on my machines for years, both desktop and laptop. I was even a Fedora developer and OpenOffice maintainer, could you believe it? But back then, everything was custom to these specific machines. And everything was a pain to manage and update. Back then, I decided to give Apple a chance, and I got a Black Mate MacBook in 2005. And what a machine! It was a great piece of hardware, but the operating system lacked a lot of my Linux customizations. So then I returned to Windows and laptops exclusively, until recent years, where I started to have MacBooks and Mac Minis again. So this brings me up to the current moment, where my main computer is a Mac Studio Max, my personal laptop is a MacBook Pro 13-inch, and my work laptop is a MacBook Pro 14-inch. Right now everything is Apple for me. And I must say that some of the old problems have returned after all these years. The Bluetooth stack, the driver, is still a piece of bad code and doesn't work properly with an external Magic trackpad, as it lags, and the workaround is to connect it constantly to the lightning cable. Then having two monitors connected that are the same brand, model and name creates a loop within the operating system for random displays arrangements, where it's a lottery to keep the displays on the same place after returning from sleep. And let's not even talk about the ports that the MacBook Pro 13-inch lacks and the 14-inch has, or the ones on the Mac Studio Max on the front that aren't Thunderbolts. Then if you run two different Apple machines where both of them are only connected to external monitors, you will need a double set of keyboard and trackpads, because those devices can't connect to multiple Bluetooth computers. It's crazy to acknowledge that, as my Windows machines, laptops and desktops can do this perfectly, and even the Microsoft keyboard can connect to 3 different computers, not at once, of course. Then the really annoying thing that I think hasn't been addressed on the macOS. So if you have two equal USB devices with the same serial number, and this happens because sometimes it's cheaper for some manufacturers just to copy the serial number, like external microphones, then Apple thinks it's just one device. Crazy! My Windows can detect all of that without any issues. But between you and me, I put all of that in context when you run very efficient computers and the computing per watt is as impressive as surreal when compared to my 700-watt powered desktop PC. The Mac Studio is a tenth of the size of the Intel desktop, more silent and emitting less heat, whilst driving incredible performance for the same applications I was using. Some of those applications, the video and audio editing ones, are even faster than Windows on Intel. Bottom line, despite having all these pet peeves, having Apple devices and especially the M1 ARM architecture, it's still the best choice in terms of personal computing. At least for now, when I'm recording this, as we know technology changes every day. The perks of having such devices can really drive productivity up, and they're not only pleasant to look at, to work on, but also the full ecosystem integration works quite well. The minor issues are just headaches that we forget they're there until we focus on it a bit more. So, are you still with Wintel? Why? Let me know in the comments below.